I was going back through book 3. I was looking for a specific piece of information that was shared or referenced. And when I was going back through book 3, I came across something else that caught my attention. Something that I didn't remember reading. Even though I read the book, I didn't remember this piece. You know, it's been a while. And when I read it, I noticed that in my consciousness, like in my thoughts and things that I could reference, there was nothing that I could sort of give me a hint to. So I wanted to ask this question that I don't know exactly what was said, but I'll repeat it as best as I remember. And it was just referenced, Rebazar was referencing the all aliveness that flows and makes all of us very real and very wonderful. And he said that in a lowly way, or in the lower realms, it's referred to as spirit. And that's a term used by the religions and stuff like that. But it was also referenced as the true influence, the true influence of the all-isness. And this is a part of the all-aliveness. And I just had a question if you could go over that or sort of bring that out. I was curious about it. I never heard it referenced as the true influence before, this all-aliveness.
It's very simple, and that is that, it's like the old saying, all life is one, whether it be creation or all life or whatever. Everything that we're experiencing, we're all in the same life. It's just that simple. And so, but we need these definitions, just like the idea that people use the idea of spirit as this reality. They use that reference, that idea, because they don't recognize what it really is, the isness, okay? Because we've been indoctrinated and taught again, literally and one-dimensionally. So we're really working from that platform of trying to figure things out from a one-dimensional minded set, etc. And, like Ramon's experience there, where the lady's talking to him, the reason that he can't remember or whatever, because he doesn't recognize it yet. It's that simple. So it's just like talking to a little child in words that's 6 months old or a year old. They just kind of look at you or they walk away or whatever, because they don't get it, because they don't recognize the word construction, the reference that is being related. And so yes, within creation, we refer to, the culmination of this thing called consciousness. And, Paul talked about that. And people think that consciousness is the ultimate, but not realizing that it's not. It's just something created. But that was a step. And so from that, particulars start to happen. Okay, so just like you mixing something together, things start to happen and it affects you. So you're influenced by it, whatever it is. It can be good, bad, or indifferent. You mix two chemicals together, it creates a gas and it knocks you out or kills you. So there's the influence right there. And so from this created consciousness, we have what I was shown, and I recognized it right away. When I took the route of power, then the boys took me into this like big schoolroom, like a cafeteria, where there were all these tables, these bench type tables that you sit at. Whatever, didn't matter. She's just smiling at me. And and because it's to the right, that's future, that's my future. So all of a sudden I recognized her meaning. Wow. And it came to be so. So I called it the influence. And at the same time, through all those years of being shown what not to do, recognizing that these people, most people involved, do not recognize what their intent is. They have these little cutesy ideas, oh, soul and all these things, you are soul and whatever. These are cute ideas, but not recognizing the real intent. So, as I'm writing this, these books are multidimensional, etc. So I use that term for that, the true influence. In other words, it's referencing this reality, this isness, as the real influence as we recognize it and are willing to accept it and be with it, you see? And because it's always trying to influence us, and through the guidance, through the guides. Life is always trying to influence, in other words, get our attention, you see? And while we have many influences, I think, so it's like almost like two people being married together, and or going together, whatever. And then for the man, there are other women that will try and influence him, but at the same time, his wife or his mate is trying to influence him also. So it's like the good and bad, the yin and yang. And so this reality becomes the true influence. So you decide what you want to truly be and intently be influenced by. So it's just another way of saying the same thing and referring to this isness that is. Now this, for the literal mind, again, it doesn't make sense because it's complete. What makes sense to the literal mind here is what we've been indoctrinated with, and that is creation, that there's a beginning, and a duration, and supposedly an end or not, or whatever, or foreverness or infinity. These again are ideas, and that there is an authority, that handles all this, that governs this, that creates all this. So this is how the personal mind thinks and sees things, because how you've been taught. So it is a struggle to recognize more, and for the longest time you question things until you learn to see what's going on. It's not a matter of figuring it out so much. First you learn to see it and recognize it, then you might say you deliver, you create the ideas to deliver that to the personal self. It's not in reverse, like we have in this world, where we have these scientists and authorities, the know-it-alls and what have you, the educated, all these knuckleheads that, they've figured things out for you, etc., and they tell you what it is. So they've actually done everything in reverse, you see, and there's no connection to their real awareness there, because it's all one-dimensional. So they capitalize on these ideas they've learned and force others to agree and control them. And so the true influence of all life is this isness, is what it is. And the key is the recognition. You must recognize it. You must see how it is and how it supports everything. In other words, it's trying to influence everyone to, as they go through their process in creation, to get them gradually to the point where they are willing to support the reality that life is instead of what life isn't. It's very interesting how it is. And again, because of how we've been taught and how we've come through these spiritual paths and whatever. And, in a way, almost, Paul didn't even really touch on it. I mean, he wrote a lot of good books and all this stuff, and this is not a put down, but no, that wasn't it. But people think that that's it, because of how they've been literally taught. And real fast, going back to one of the experiences where it was either this year or last year, the beginning of this year or last year, where she was on the real side, and there was one of those bookshelves against the wall, open bookshelves, and a bunch of Paul's books, and all of a sudden the whole bookshelf fell on her, just toppled on her. Because again, and I guess she was reading these books or whatever, but no, it don't work. It's not in the words. You look at the words and how they are a reference to something, but for the most part, they are a reference to other ideas, other words. So the belief idea is a reference to the God idea, you see, and that's not going to work. That's not how life is. So this true influence, and yeah, you want to be influenced. Once you see how this is, what it's really saying is that this is your real support. Not here struggling, working and chasing money and trying to get some thrills and taste and happiness and all these things that you're chasing. Again, that's where the sun is the best reference, because you don't see any of that there. You don't see belief, happiness, joy, love, all these things that we've made up here. But people want to cling to their emotions so much so that they think it's something emotional. But no, it's something real. And this is the fun part of, as I've gone through my experience and struggle with it and eventually recognized that, none of this is it. And I take the risk to state that. And, by the very fact that sometimes, I just see it, and my personal mind doesn't even register it, but eventually it seeps in to where, yeah, it is so. But then again, what is it? You cannot consider it. That's the reality of it. How do you do this? You definitely cannot consider it how it is. So you have to learn to see it and recognize it. So that's just simply another reference, Jeremy, to this reality. And I try to mix it up because, again, people want to use their literal mind to try and figure out. Look at the Bible, people. They all take it literally. Basically, they all take it verbatim, literally. And who in the heck wrote that nonsense? People that want to control others. They wrote all these stuff. They did all these stories. They started all these rumors and all this nonsense that we've grown up with. You can throw it all out. You don't need any of it. It's sound good stuff that means nothing except emotional attachment and unawareness. It's more fun to see what's real and work it from there, and then try and make sense the best you can in creation, because creation is nuts, especially now. It's all nuts. Yeah, it's a living hell, and it's all nuts. And look what we got to deal with. And trying to talk to people to make sense of something, again, they are so chained to their one-dimensional mind and thinking that they know something. The biggest step is to finally recognize and realize you don't know anything here. But if you want to be the know-it-all, go ahead, and then you got nothing. See, it's all geared to the personal self. Keep your attention on personal self. Look out for number one, whatever, these old book titles and whatever. It's all nonsense, and it just keeps you in reincarnation. So to recognize how that true influence is, okay, that is really what you're really looking for. But in a way, you need the personal self too to help you figure it out, because you're basically embedded in the personal self. So you make adjustments accordingly to where this personal self is also willing to give up itself to allow the awareness to be complete. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Because all these spiritual paths and whatever, I was in Eckankar and all that nonsense, and it was good. I needed that. But it's all about me. When am I going to get this? When am I going to get the next initiation? What about this? What about that? See, it's all about this and that. And all life is not about any of that. None of it. You can think whatever you want. You can create any good idea. Nothing. All I create, I realize that, all I'm creating here is references to this reality. And yeah, it's not easy to, again, it's like a fish trying to walk on water, walk out of the water onto the land. That's an evolution that would take how long? And basically the idea here is we've been told that, we came from the ocean and eventually walked onto the land. Well, that's a cute idea. Whatever. It don't matter. It don't matter where you came from. All that matters is now. That's real. Everything else, it's a good sounding story, whether it's so-called true or not, means nothing. But it's a reference as a conversation piece to unaware people to possibly help them along from their situation of, not knowing why they're here. Not at all. None of us remember, very seldom, or any of us remember why we came here, why we decided. But as you learn to recognize this reality, then you start to see what's going on with everything, and having to deal with it. It's not about changing anything. That's not the idea. It's not about changing anything. Then this is what people think. Again, protesting and change this and do, well, it's not about that. And so even with what I've created and what I want to create, and even the self-sustaining communities, whatever, I'm using these as references, as steps for people, because most people, they're so unaware of anything, and they're so locked in one-dimensionally that they really need help a step at a time to see better, see what's really taking place here right in front of them. And so this true influence is the true reality, and it's because of what it is. It's not something that we're given. When Paul did the spiritual exercises, he said, sit down, do the contemplation, look for the light, hear the sound. Well, that's the secondary light. That's the secondary light. That's the real light as it comes into creation becomes secondary, and it becomes information, knowledge is what it becomes. It just depends upon how it hits the person. And it's the first part. No one can take the real light because it's recognition. You're not going to just recognize, oh, you can see that it's light, but can you recognize it? Can you see, you might say, what it's saying, what it is? No, you can't. So you start off with the information, the secondary light. And Revazar explained this very well, and I had lived on that in the real far country. It's very, very important, and this is where people, in a way mislead themselves, thinking that, oh, this is spirit, I got spirit, I see the light or whatever. So it's not just seeing the light. It's like looking at the sun. You just don't look at the sun. It's like, oh, that's the sun. You learn to recognize what the sun represents and the example that it's providing. Can you do that? That's the important part. The important part is the unseen part that your senses and your personal mind cannot see or cannot understand. It is what you cannot see that is real. It is what you cannot understand that is real and cannot consider. That is real. But you decide if you're going to do that, and for most people, they're going to think, oh, well, it doesn't exist. And even Paul said it, he said, it would seem as though it doesn't exist. And that's how it is. Because it's so real, it is just so real, that even when you experience it, you can't really in any way consider it. It's like, what's going on? What is this? Until you really learn to recognize it with your real awareness. And then the personal self will get the gist of it. But then it will become, as it's created, it will become a reference. And this is what has happened in the past, where people had certain experiences and they try to, acknowledge it in some way. But for the most part, it all becomes influenced and infiltrated, just like Paul Eckankar did, especially as Joni took over, especially first with Darwin and then Harold. And that's okay, because it's a good example of what not to do. All of it's okay once you learn to see how it is. But packing all that explanation into that, well, this is where, like anything, it's like when you were in school and you read the books and you were given homework assignments, you had to figure out certain things. Well, that's each person's part. There's a lot that has been said and whatever. And it's not about opinions, good or bad or right or wrong. It's not about any of that, or truth. Everybody has their own truth. This is really kind of a joke, the truth idea. And people have been stuck with that truth and consciousness and all these things. All these old terms that are so saturated with misunderstanding, but they sound really good to the personal, one-dimensional, rational mind. Sounds really good. And you add some emotion to it or whatever, just like they sing in church and hallelujah and all that. Oh, it just sounds really good because, it just feeds that emotional body. which is fine. Have some fun. But if you drowned in it, that's all you got, because you're just going to grow old, and then you're just going to be, that's where you're going to be floating in that emotional body and all those ideas that you thought were so cool. But actually, when you leave here, you're going to find out they go nowhere. It's nada, because that's not it. So all the hints are there, and it's the best it's ever been. Yeah. So again, I referred to the experience that I had many years ago. It was around the Rod of Power or something like that. I don't remember. I didn't do the dates, but I was a view and went up, was viewing this high-rise building where the personal self was at the very top, and it was all glass and whatever, and the impression was it was Paul Newman, the greatest architect ever. And so that's Paul and the new man. That's where I got the new man from. And I was sitting, I could see the personal self sitting at a desk typing or whatever. And because of how the references are, more so than any time at all, here it is, here it is for everyone. And that's why there's only a very few of us, because it's very difficult. And you don't have to climb mountains or whatever. These are metaphors that we all go through. Yeah. At a certain point on the real side, as I approach the mountain or something, and, even one of the boys would say, well, are you going to climb it or whatever? And at a certain point I said, no, I ain't climbing any more mountains. I ain't doing it. I already have the view. I don't need to climb any mountains. And they just laugh. Because at a certain point, you don't need to do all that stuff. But while you're going through it, just like baby steps, yes, you do. Until you get used to learning to see it. That's the best part, and that's every moment. Learn to see it every moment. So it's more than Eckhart Tolle and just living now, being now. It is learning to see what is real. He don't see it. He refers to gods and whatever, etc., authorities. As long as you're referring to an authority, there's no authority with all life. No, it's an endless sky. It's the real endless skies. That's why what they call the universe here. See, they've fooled people into thinking that, oh, this is a universe. No, it's not. It's a dark, dungeon realm. Real universes are endless. I redefined all of it. Redefined the levels from Paul's, etc., whatever. Yeah, and it's all there. Because now the opportunity is to recognize what's real. It's all open. And this bothers a lot of people because they just can't figure it out to where, that there doesn't have to be a consideration for anything. But at the same time, yes, your personal self does what it does. There's these two sides to yourself. And you just simply note that and recognize it. And it's all okay. So whatever you do, it's your choice. And you decide. But as you step up and to be involved in a real purpose, you decide to subject yourself to this true influence to take part. And so to do that, it's not that, oh, I just want this experience. No. Life recognizes that, and for the most part, you'll have experiences, but to actually stand real with it and support it realistically, to where you give up everything, but at the same time you do what you do. Yeah, it's very, very interesting how it really is, and not what we think it is. So whatever you think it is, that's not it. It's more real than that. It's its own, and it becomes more real as you recognize it, and a step at a time, it allows you to recognize something. That's all you can say is, it's like the old saying, who can say? Who can say what it is? You can't. You really can't. But so you do the best you can, and at the same time, you become very creative and help others. This is the reality that life is, just like parents with children. They're not going to sit there and watch them struggle and suffer. They're going to help them along. They're going to support them till they can support themselves, and that's the whole idea. So the guides are here to support us, okay? Not to enhance our thrills and what we want, etc., but to show us how we can do it for ourselves and recognize this so we're okay, because we're all in the same life. And it's all being to being, and recognizing that being to being. What is that? Yeah, more than just you are soul, you think, or you got a soul, for these old ideas. What does that mean? And then look to the master and see if he can figure it out for you. Well, yeah, whatever. Those are the old days. So again, as I said many years ago, the days of masters and gurus are gone. They are, because these are authorities. They're babysitters. But if that's what you want, go for it. But at the same time, the guides are there. They're there to guide you. And so the idea is that you basically come to the point where you're willing to step up and do whatever it takes to recognize what's real. But that's your choice. You have to decide that. Okay. That's the short version, Jeremy. Is that good, Jeremy?
No, that was great. I appreciate it. Thank you.